What we're going to do now is we're going to look at combination 41. I'm going to show you it as it's written, and then we're going to talk about it a little bit and look at another variation or another option that we could utilize. So he's going to be throwing a punch, and I'm going to step back. Now you're going to see the beginning is we're coming up like this to sort of do what we used to call a clam block. We're kind of catching as a vertical clam block where we're catching and drawing the person in. Now, some will teach that this is a parry and this hand just, it gets up and it captures and draws in as a sort of a secondary thing. What I would say would be a sort of a fantasy approach to this would be thinking that you can actually catch the punch. We talk about the ideal phase when we're training techniques. The ideal phase is if everything goes perfect. I just want to make sure you don't grab the microphone, so grab there. So ideal phase, right? I pin, I step back and I'm stretching him out and pulling him off balance, and I'm able to strike his arm and inflict injury, and he lets go, and I kick him in the groin and he bends it. So all the reactions are in an ideal world. This is just fantasy island if you think you're going to catch a punch. So, wait one second. Got to fix my jacket. Okay, so the technique as it's written, we're catching the punch and then we're going to turn it over and we're going to lock him and hopefully get him starting to bend over. You went too far on me. Come on, you should know better. Now I'm going to kick him in the face and I'm going to wrap the arm up and I'm going to turn. Now stay down. I'm going to turn and I'm going to jam the arm and then I'm going to release as I turn. And I'm going to punch him in the ribs. I'm going to punch him in the ribs. Okay, he's making this technique look far less effective than it needs to. I think it does a good job of that on its own. So I'm going to punch him in the ribs, elbow, and then elbow, elbow, or forearm, and then forearm. Now I'm okay with the double punch in the forearms, and I'm okay, you'll see, I'm okay with the wrapping the arm even. There's some applications in this technique that I like. I wouldn't show it to you if I thought it was a completely silly technique. What I do think is completely silly, and Ben reacts kind of, he doesn't like getting hit, so he moves on me quite a bit. But what I do think is silly is this. Don't try to catch a punch. If there's one thing you learned from me today, don't try to catch a punch. I think this is a little bit more practical, but here's the problem with that. It's sort of based off of the idea that if I throw a punch at Ben, and let's say he steps out of the way and he blocks it, I've committed to that so much that I just keep going, and not every punch is like that. And even if I do lose my balance, I'll still usually be pulling my arm back. I'm not just going to leave it out there for the person to grab and manipulate. So those are the issues that we're dealing with. Is there a solution? One of my instructors taught me when you're looking at different techniques, and I've learned hundreds of techniques through the years with different instructors, that sometimes you're going to come across techniques that are salvageable and sometimes you're not. And sometimes you just have to toss that model away because it's not worth the time of trying to rework it. If you put the time in to rework it, you basically have a completely new technique. I don't think that's the case here. So he's going to push. Well, we should get clear on what the attack is. He's going to push. And now I'm moving a little bit different because in the original, off the punch, I had the other foot back. But I like this. I think this will work actually a little bit nicer for me. So I'm going to trap him, and then I'm going to lock him this way. Okay? So now we still have our kick. Let's look at this again though. So he pushes, and I'm going to grab. I want to be squeezing. I want to manipulate, try to inflict pain by grabbing and squeezing the bones together. Okay? And this hand is coming up, and I'm going to twist and I'm going to lock him down. Snap kick. And I'm going to wrap. And we're going to talk about this particular part of the technique later. I'm going to give you a practical application for this. I'm going to wrap. I'm going to keep him trapped. Now, you might notice the first time, too, that I kind of was moving him around. It's not that the technique isn't working. It's that he's bumping into the microphone pack on my back. So it might look a little more awkward than it actually is. I'm turning and I'm going to elbow and release and then punch. Now if he's at this distance, you know what I'm going to do? I'm not going to do punch and then try to elbow him because he's turned more. I'm just going to adapt it. This is kind of what if phase, if you will. I'm going to punch him in the ear. And then if he's still trying to get back up and come in, that's fine, because now he's going to be turning into these elbows, and I'm hitting him in the side of the neck. Okay, so again, one more time, off the push. I lock him down. I kick. Now I'm controlling him. He could snap up, but I have the armbar that's controlling him and keeping him down. I'm going to land. I'm keeping this wrapped. From here, I'm going to elbow, and I'm pulling this way. Then I let it slide off, and I turn in place, punch, and it's written that it's going to be punch, elbow, but he's a little farther away, so why not punch, punch, and the ear is a sensitive target, and then elbow, elbow, and I'm kind of driving him away with those. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're going to look at another application of this, and I want to talk a little bit about some of the power mechanics as well. I'm going to point out something that you can integrate within this technique from White Crane that maybe some of you have already recognized. We'll get to that in a moment. So let's do a wrist grab instead of a push. And now we're going to move in and do an arm bar. Well, what happens if we're in a situation where the person's struggling with us, they're standing up, now it's kind of an arm wrestling match, and this had happened to me before actually, and I just fell back away from it, and I took their arm this way, and now spinning away, I'm moving away from that punch. I've got the arm trapped, and now I'm using, certainly whenever you perform a technique, you want to maximize the use of your body to deliver power. But in this particular instance, we're going to get a lot of rotational or angular momentum out of this, which means there's going to be a lot of power going into that wrenching of his arm. Okay, so that's just another application. The technique now, we've gotten rid of the kick because we're struggling here. Like I said, I'm falling back away from him. And now I'm pulling, let's keep turning though, just so we can change angles here. So I'm pulling and pushing here. And this, if you think of the short punch that some of you have done, couldn't we be utilizing that push and pull action to get a little bit more power? I'm not going to go through the short punch with you today. We have a video on YouTube you guys can check out if you want to review it. Let's do it from this angle. So we're here. Now, if things are going wrong, somehow we ended up in this position where he's standing back up, I can fall away from him and I can start trying to wrench that arm. I could then even let this go and move into some of our other techniques that we have. And of course, you can go back to the push and just go back through the sequence as it is and start thinking about how you can integrate the short punch. So just giving you a couple of ideas within the framework of the technique as far as some other possibilities and as far as power dynamics are concerned. So take another look at it. We got a couple more minutes and then we're done for the night.